Hello, my friends, and welcome once again to our cottage kitchen. I figured it was time that we finally talked about homemade bacon. We've been making homemade bacon in our kitchen now for 6 or 7 years, so we have enough experience to have something to say about it. But I definitely want to point you guys in the direction of Farmstead Meatsmith. His name is Brandon in real life. He's a friend of ours, and he is the one who taught us how to butcher our pigs and how to traditionally cure our meats. So this method completely comes down to him and his expertise. Now, the reasons why you would want to home cure bacon are very simple. For one, you can control the quality of the pork that you're going to be using. For two, you can control the additives that are going to be added into the bacon. There are so many hidden things in our foods. And so one of the ways, and frankly, because it's the easiest way for us to eliminate that, is just to do some things ourselves. Home curing meat can really scare people. It might feel like an intimidating subject, but I hope to show you in this video really how dead simple it is. So one of the reasons, even though we're not raising pigs right now, that we're still choosing to do this is the price of bacon at the store has gotten astronomically high, and we have a really hard time finding good quality bacon where we are located. What I can get, and what you'll need to get to make your own bacon at home, is a really good high quality pork belly. Pork belly is what we're going to be curing into what we call bacon as we traditionally know it, at least here in America. So I source these from a local Washington farm, beautiful pigs, pasture raised, fattened on acorns, and the pork is absolutely divine. So what you actually see here is 3 different pork bellies, 1, 2, and then one that we've already been eating on. So first I'm going to show you, now that you have your pork belly acquired, how to cure your meat. This sounds fancy, it's so incredibly simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix about 3 cups of a nice high quality sea salt. I like to use a medium grind. If you use a fine grind, your bacon can end up a little bit too salty in the end. And if you use a coarse grind, you're not able to cover the entire area like you can with a nice finer salt. So I use a medium, coarse, good quality sea salt. Then I use the same amount, another 3 cups, of a good high quality sugar. So 50% salt, 50% sugar. I've used maple sugar, I've used organic white sugar, I've used Rapadura or Sucanant, all different forms of a sweetener, and they all work great. Now, the result of the sweetener is really twofold. One, sugar actually does work to cure the meat in the same way that salt does. It'll actually permeate into the flesh and into the fat, and it'll pull out the moisture, which is how this works. The other thing that sugar does is it keeps you from over-salting your bacon. The number one mistake that you will make, I've made this multiple times, is you will want to over-cure and over-salt your bacon. And the reason we do this is because we just panic. We've been so conditioned to fear meat and to fear raw meat in our culture that what we do is we're just like, well, if a little bit of salt is good, then a lot of salt will be better to just make sure that nothing happens. The good thing about curing your own bacon is that you will know if something goes off. It's not going to be hard to tell. You're just going to be able to smell the bacon. It's not going to smell good or appetizing, and that will give you a clue that this did not work. But the 50% sugar to 50% salt ratio will work. So mix that together in a bowl, and then what you're going to want to do is completely coat your pork belly. Take the time to massage it into all the cracks, all the crevices, anywhere. Lift up any extra flats of meat like you see here and cut them off so that there's no place that can go unsalted and uncured. We want to really result in as flat of a pork belly as possible so that there's nowhere for bacteria to hide that we can't reach with our salt. So take the time to do this. I get my pork bellies with skin on them. So you can see this is what the skin looks like. And I actually rub this down with a cure as well. The salt and sugar don't really permeate through the skin, but I still like to do it anyway just to get off anything on the surface that might be lingering there. So, pretty simple. Then all you need to do is grab a baking sheet like this and maybe put a wire rack down so that the pork belly is raised up. So in that first day or two, your pork bellies are going to leach a lot of liquid, and this is great. This is the water that's coming out of the meat, and that's ultimately what's going to make the bacon stable. So when you see it starting to pool up, just pour it off, and then every couple days, I would say at least every day in the beginning, just rotate them. Bottom on top, top on bottom, just like so. And that's just going to make sure that our cure stays evenly distributed. There's not too much weight squishing the one on the bottom, and just overall get the most even cure that we can, which is what we're going for.
I would like to invite you to join the Elliott Homestead cooking community at cook.theelliottHomestead.com. This is for home cooks out there who would love some new inspiration, ideas, and motivation to get going in the kitchen. Each month, I create 5 brand new recipes inspired by what is in season around our farm. But don't worry, you don't have to have a farm to enjoy this beautiful food. You can have these recipes delivered to you digitally or physically if you live within the United States. Recipes will range from entrees to side dishes to desserts, breads, vegetables, salads, everything in between. Then I'll guide you through the recipes with a long, in-depth cooking video, showing you new skills and encouraging you as you give these recipes a try in your own kitchen, whether you're cooking for yourself or you're cooking for a crowd. The Elliott Homestead cooking community is here to inspire and nourish your family. We're going to teach you to bake, to use sourdough, to try new ingredients, to really fall in love with good food again. Visit cook.theelliottHomestead.com for more information.
So this takes about 1 week in total, but you want to pay attention in those last few days, because what we are trying to do is cure the pork belly until there's no more liquid really coming off. That means like the cure has reached what it needs to do. So be mindful in those last couple days. But for this size of pork belly, I have found 7 days is usually like right on the money. So once that 7 days is up, you have some options. So what I like to do then is bring my pork bellies into the kitchen, and I actually prefer to keep my bacon, at least this time of year, at room temperature. Now it's winter here, and our kitchen stays fairly mild in terms of temperature. We have a very dry climate. This is going to be really particular to where you're located. If you have a really high humidity where you are, you might need to create some sort of a chamber where this bacon can sort of escape the humidity. Or if you don't want to mess with any of that, the bacon now can just be cut into slices, wrapped in parchment paper, wrapped in some plastic, and stuck in the freezer in portions. Alternatively, you could also cold smoke the bacon, which is going to help it preserve all the more. I like smoked bacon. I don't love it. And so this is literally the extent of how I cure my bacon. Salt, sugar, 7 days in the fridge. And then what I'll do is I will take out 1 piece at a time. You see, I still have my skin on. This is great because this is a great protectant against flies. Now, the way that I really preserve my bacon against flies is once it comes out of the refrigerator, the curing is done, I coat the entire outside in black pepper. Just pre-ground black pepper, great for flavor, and flies hate it. So I have found that this is enough, this is sufficient to keep any kind of pests off of my bacon. But if that makes you uncomfortable, by all means, slice it up and freeze it. So what I then do is just grab a meat hook like so, put it through the skin, which is easier said than done. Okay, that was easier said than done, but we got it on the meat hook. You can just grab these on any online kitchen store, and then I will just hang this right with my pots and pans above my stove so that anytime I want a piece, I can just take it down and cut it off. Few questions I'm anticipating. Can you make this bacon if you have a pork belly without the skin on? Yes, absolutely. You'll just have 2 exposed sides of meat, which is absolutely fine. Another question I'm anticipating is, can I use store-bought or previously frozen pork belly? And you absolutely can. But because I rely so much on the quality of my meat, and that's really what a lot of this hinges on, if you're going to use a previously frozen pork belly, or maybe a pork belly that you're not really sure of the quality of, you can still cure it the same way, but then I would recommend slicing it up and putting it in the freezer and just taking a portion out maybe each week, like a week's worth of bacon or a ration of bacon, if you will, just because that kind of eliminates any sort of pitfalls you could fall into with keeping it at room temperature. So there are a few. One, you'll notice that as it stays at room temperature, now Granted, I have a family of 6, so we work through pork bellies actually pretty quickly. So I would say this probably is going to last us for maybe another 3 weeks or so, and then we're going to move on to the next one. This will start to harden because the water that's in it, the last bits of water in it, will naturally start to evaporate. And so it'll get stiffer, it'll get a little bit more difficult to cut. And so that's just something to be aware of. That doesn't mean that anything's wrong. Sometimes too, you just kind of want to check the edges because there are these little, I don't know what the right word is. They're like these little meat flies, and they like to burrow in there. So long as you cover it in pepper or cold smoke it, you're good to go. They don't really do that much. You just kind of got to, cut it off. But on the whole, depending on how fast you're working through it, unless you're leaving this out in the room for 6 months or a year, you don't really need to worry about pests in that capacity because those are ones that just come really kind of long-term down the road if you're going to use this kind of curing method on, let's say, a prosciutto or something like that. But for bacon, usually you can eliminate all that really, really easily. So that's it. I'm going to put a link actually below the video to a blog post that has the exact recipe that we started with when we learned how to cure our own bacon, so that you can head on over to the blog and you can easily print that out or just, visualize the step-by-step tutorial if you'd like to see it. But I hope that this will encourage you to cure your own bacon. It can be one of those monumental things that you build up in your mind, but really it's such a simplistic and beautiful way to appreciate this incredible cut of meat that we get to be blessed with in our kitchens. It's also one of those things that makes a great gift. It surprises people. In fact, one of these is for a friend of mine who let us borrow his bull to breed our cow. And I thought, what more beautiful way to say thank you than giving you a slab of home-cured bacon. I would love to hear in the comments if you have cured your own bacon or if there's any herbs or spices that you like to include, like juniper or bay or crushed peppercorns. Really, the world is your oyster. You can make this recipe your own. And once you know the few simple techniques to follow, you can make some really beautiful bacon. So happy curing, my friends. Cheers.